declared Armistice Day by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919 and was meant to celebrate the end of a tragic war. On Armistice Day, businesses closed at 11 a.m. and celebratory parades filled the streets, marking a moment of reflection and gratitude for the sacrifices made during the war.
On May 13, 1938, an act was approved to officially allow this day to become legally recognized as a holiday. They officially began to celebrate World War I veterans on November 11th of each year. Shortly after this holiday was passed, World War II began and required the greatest mobilization of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen in the nation's history. Combined with the Korean War, the 83rd Congress was encouraged by veteran service organizations to amend the Armistice Day Act, replacing the word armistice with veterans. Armistice simply meant an agreement to cease hostilities, but with this change, all veterans would be recognized on this day.
While a veteran is defined as someone who has served in the military, their contributions extend far beyond that simple description. Veterans are individuals who have willingly sacrificed time with their family, as well as their health and safety, to protect and defend our nation. Their commitment embodies a profound dedication to the beliefs and freedoms we cherish, making their service an invaluable part of history and our lives.
At this time, we would like to recognize our veterans. If you are able, please stand to be recognized when your branch is called. If you're unable to stand, please raise your hand.
United States Army and National Guard.
United States Navy.
United States Marine Corps.
United States Air Force.
United States Coast Guard. Standing behind every veteran is a family who has faced their own set of challenges while their loved one was gone. If you are a spouse, child, or dependent of a veteran, would you please stand?
We would like to thank you for having served and for those of you who continue to serve. Let's have another round of applause for all of our veterans and their families.
Next up, presenting our inspirational words is Mallory Hall.
I would like to begin this morning by thanking our veterans, especially those present with us today, for everything that they have bravely done for our country. Each individual who made the courageous decision to serve our nation faced different challenges throughout their journey. They knowingly chose a path that would demand immense sacrifices, including possibly their lives. Joining the armed forces is a monumental decision, and it is merely the beginning. As we walk through life, we will face difficult decisions, seemingly impossible obstacles, and even tragedy. Some in this room today already have. But just because the journey is difficult, we should not stop pursuing the destination. The trials we face should not make us turn around and give up. They should encourage us to work harder, just as many of our veterans have. I want to leave you with the one thing that pulls me through the rough times in my life, and that is my faith in Christ. In the book of John, chapter 16, verse 33, the verse reads, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Christ has already overcome every tribulation because he has overcome the world. This powerful verse reminds me that I can be at peace with what happens around me because my Savior has already been there. Similarly, our veterans have overcome impossible situations so that we, the citizens of America, may sleep safely in our homes every night. So my plea with you today is that not only when you see a veteran, you would thank them for their service, but that you would exit this auditorium with the true understanding of the responsibility they have willingly taken on and the sacrifices they have made for our country. Our veterans have overcome trials in their lives because they love our country, and Christ has overcome the world because he loves you. So today, remember our veterans for the safety of our nation, and remember Christ for our salvation. Thank you.
Veterans in our community.
Petty Officer Neil Patel, United States Navy, father of Taj and Dylan Patel, uncle of Dev and Krish Patel, strong class of 1989.
Petty Officer Richard A. Jordan, U.S. Navy, USS James Monroe, nuclear submarine, uncle of Jordan, Reagan, and Lauren Wood.
Gerald Worley, United States Navy, grandfather of Michael Owens, Alexis Owens, Ariana Mayo, and Tyler Owens. Senior Chief Petty Officer Roger Moore, Navy, father of Ryan Moore. Senior Chief Petty Officer Barry Wood, Naval Reserve CB, father of Lauren, Reagan, and Miss Wood. Sergeant Robert David Gordon, United States Army, September 7th, 1987 to September 16th, 2009. A Co-3rd pilot, Fort Lewis, Washington, Afghanistan. Shandy Gordon's brother-in-law and the uncle of C.D., Rhett, and Brock Gordon.
Gordon Rosdick, United States Army, Mr. Rosdick's grandfather, World War II prisoner of war, and tank driver.
Private First Class William F. Hall, United States Army, 82nd Airborne in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Grandfather of Ella Grace Wood.
Sergeant First Class William H. Stoney Hall, 1st Battalion, 23rd Infantry Joint Base, Lewis McChord, Washington. Operations Iraqi Freedom. Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal with Valor, Meritorious Service Medal, U.S. Army Ranger, and U.S. Army Airborne. Sergeant Robert David Gordon II, veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Miss Fallon's brother died September 16, 2009, from a war-related illness while serving in Afghanistan. He was 22.
Elaine Albright, United States Army, Desert Storm 101st Airborne, mother of Hannah, Jessica, and Nathan Albright. Sergeant Major Casey Shiver, father of Vanessa Shiver, Operation Inherent Resolve in the ongoing war in Syria. Bill Thomas, United States Army, strong graduate, and Miss Thomas's son. Austin Bailey, U.S. Army, Miss Bailey's grandfather. Christopher Stephen Foster, United States Army, Captain, Medical Service Corps Officer, 1998 graduate of Strawn High School.
Lieutenant Colonel Paul Mullins, U.S. Army retired, father of Emily Mullins.
Fraser Jackson, military police in Vietnam War, grandfather to Lane Gaines. Elbert Robertson Jr., United States Army, World War II, prisoner of war, grandfather of Miss Simpson.
Sergeant Brandon Beasley, U.S. Army National Guard,
2013 graduate of Strawn High School. Operation Inherent Resolve and the ongoing war in Syria. Father of Alex and Ayla.
Specialist Hunter Stevens, United States Army National Guard, Strawn Class of 2020. Operation Inherent, the Resolve and the ongoing war in Syria. Combat Infantry Badge.
Specialist Wyatt Thomas, U.S. Army National Guard, Strawn Class of 2020, Ms. Thomas's son. Operation Inherent Resolve and the ongoing war in Syria. Combat Infantry Badge.
Devin Williams, 11th Signal Brigade, Fort Cavazos, United States Army, Strawn Class of 2022.
Doyle Hart, Staff Sergeant, Operation Iraqi Freedom, National Guard, Terry Watson's brother, T.J. Watson's uncle.
Ken Lebowitz, Army, father of Lauren Lebowitz.
Larry Roundtree, U.S. Army, Airborne Ranger, Vietnam War, and grandfather to Presley Bates. Fred R. Kelly, Corporal, United States Army, 1952 to 1954. Private First Class, United States National Guard. Father of Sharon Driver. Grandfather of Anna Driver.
Chief Warrant Officer 2, Frank Albright, U.S. Army helicopter pilot, 101st Airborne. Father of Hannah, Jessica, and Nathan Albright.
Caleb Pinkard, Alabama National Guard, Strawn Class of 2017, brother to Costin and Tanner Pinkard.
Joseph Hernandez, United States Army Infantry, from 2000 to 2007. Uncle to Christian and Catherine Kime. Sergeant Clinton Wade Fallon, 5E, Miss Fallon's husband, HHB 1st Battalion, 117th Field Artillery. Served 18 months in Iraq, veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Retired 24 years of service.
Specialist 4, Harris Lonnie Smith, U.S. Army, grandfather of Avery Smith and Jayla Baxter.
Jimmy Cooper, U.S. Army, Vietnam, Desert Storm, grandfather of Caitlin, Hunter, and Molly McVeigh.
Price Rayner Sykes, United States Army, Private First Class for 3 years in World War II. Great-grandfather of Brooklyn Ammons.
Master Sergeant David M. Edwards Jr., U.S. Army, Operations Iraqi and Enduring Freedom. 75th Ranger Regiment, Special Missions Unit, Joint Special Operations Command. Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars. Purple Heart, 16 combat deployments. Father of Anna Lee Edwards.
Master Sergeant William P. Smith, United States Army, Vietnam 67 through 68, Bronze Star, father of Miss Clark, grandfather of Miss Morris, great-grandfather of Dylan, Houston, and Leighton Smith, and Kylie Rogers.
The Edwards family. Colonel David M. Edwards Sr., United States Army, Operation Enduring Freedom. Master Sergeant David M. Edwards Jr., United States Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. Specialist Robert Edwards, United States Army, Operation Enduring Freedom. Grandfather, father, and uncle to Anna Lee Edwards.
Private Gerald Tommy Seymour, United States Army, grandfather of Jayla Baxter. Gary Hart, Staff Sergeant, Operation Iraqi Freedom, National Guard, Nurse Watson's brother, and T.J. Watson's uncle. Master Sergeant Donald E. Jordan, United States Army, Alabama Army National Guard, post-World War II Europe, grandfather of Jordan, Reagan, and Lauren Wood.
James L. Turman, United States Army, Staff Sergeant, 82nd Airborne Infantry, 10 years of service, Rapid Deployment Force, Airborne, Training Battalion, and Miss Terman's husband. William Roy Evers, Army and Air Force, World War II, Coach Evers' father.
Staff Sergeant Ernest E. Horace, United States Army, United States Air Force, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, great-grandfather of Mason and Matthew Bozeman.
C.J. Philpott, United States Air Force Academy cadet, 2016 graduate of Straughn High School alumni. Brother to Richie and Charlie Philpott.
Dave Tufts, February 10, 1978 to September 30th, 2005. Air Force A-10 Crew Chief, then Personnel Chief. Retired grandfather of Charlotte Shaw.
Jolene Tufts and Kenneth Shaw, 1999 to 2005. Air Force Air Traffic Controller and mother of Charlotte Shaw. Air Force Security Forces and father of Charlotte Shaw.
Staff Sergeant Charles E. Young, served in Air Force during Korean War. Miss Parrish's father.
Sergeant Floyd Wood, United States Air Force, from 1968 to 1972, Ballistic Missile Program, grandfather of Blakely Smith and Caroline, Abby, and Ella Grace Wood. Michael Wayne Willingham, United States Air Force from 1966 to 1970, Vietnam, Miss Carter's father.
Leighton Earl Matthews, United States Marine Corps for 27 and a half years. Chief Warrant Officer, 5 tours overseas, Vietnam and Korea. Brooklyn Amon's great-grandfather.
Tyler Crossfield, United States Marine Corps, uncle of Tiara and Jayla Baxter.
Thank you for your service.
It is both an honor and a privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel James Lawrence. With a life marked by dedication, commitment, and unwavering service, Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence's journey is nothing short of remarkable. A 1965 graduate of Opp High School and a 1969 graduate of Troy University, Lieutenant Colonel James Lawrence served 26 years and 7 months on active duty in the Air Force. As an instructor pilot for T-38 jet trainers, he trained pilots from various nations. During the closing days of the Vietnam War, he flew C-130 airlift missions and played a crucial role in evacuating refugees from Saigon. Later, Jim flew AC-130H gunships in special operations and was one of 4 commanders in Operation Eagle Crew, the mission to rescue 52 American hostages in Tehran. He co-held the world record for a non-stop C-130 flight for over 20 years and was among the original 83 members of a new command, collaborating with elite units like SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, and the Army Rangers to develop rapid response strategies for global threats. He later served as an aerospace rescue and recovery instructor pilot and flight examiner for the HC-130, conducting low-level radio-silent missions. Colonel Lawrence had an illustrious career, flying 23 different aircrafts, including 3 combat planes, and accumulating 5,800 flying hours while visiting over 40 countries. He served as a classroom instructor, vice commandant, and interim commandant of the United States Air Force Special Operations School. After retiring, he worked as a civilian contractor in environmental engineering for 9 years. Currently, he's an accomplished author, having written 2 books, Airman's Odyssey and Air Force Special Operators' Incredible Journey and American Veterans, Their Stories of Service and Valor. He frequently speaks at various organizations and facilitated a program at Auburn University to help veterans address PTSD. His extensive military career is adorned with numerous awards and recognitions, reflecting his courage and dedication to our country.
In 2016, he was recognized as one of 24 veterans in blue, joining notable figures like General Chuck Yeager and astronaut Buzz Aldrin. Colonel Lawrence has been married to his wife Joanne for 54 years, and they have 2 daughters, along with 3 grandchildren. In his life's journey, Lieutenant Colonel James Lawrence has exemplified the values of dedication, courage, and service, both in his personal life and military career. His story is one of inspiration and resilience, and we are fortunate to have him here today to share his experiences and insights. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speaker, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel James Lawrence.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And Principal, thank you for inviting me to come. I can't think of any place I would rather go than to a school and speak to students, especially if we've got distinguished veterans out there to mingle in. Congratulations on Strawn's 100th year anniversary. That's a big deal. My first visit here was in the 1960s. We played basketball here, and Strawn was a small school then, but you had some amazing players. One of them was named Seth Hammett. You've probably heard of him. The other one was Tim Goolsby. He could shoot about like Caitlin Clark can with the women's NBA. He could drain them from about half court, so there was just no guarding these guys. I think they went to the state that year. But Poochie Durrell, players like that, and they just beat us to a pulp. It was embarrassing. But anyway, as mentioned before, Veterans Day originated at the end of World War I, and it was originally termed Armistice Day. And President Woodrow Wilson said that this is to celebrate the war that ended all wars. Now, how many of you believe that, if you look at what's going on in today's world? Or it was the war to make the world safe for democracy. But anyway, it was later changed to Armistice Day, to Veterans Day from Armistice Day. Some people might ask, why do we want to honor veterans? And I've thought about it a lot, and the simple answer is that veterans do things that others either don't want to do or they can't do. The military is not for just anyone. There are certain people that are just not cut out for it. Some of those things asked of veterans are terrible. They're asked to harm or kill other people. And that's one of the most serious things you can do in life, is to take another human's life. But that's part of the mission. They take great risks with their own lives. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is they often carry those burdens with them for the rest of their life. They never forget it. One popular definition of a veteran is one that writes a blank check made out to the United States for an amount up to and including their life. So when you sign on, you do understand, or you need to understand, that you could give your life. That's all you can give. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, John 15:13, reads, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man would lay down his life for others." And the Bible, of course, is referring to the Son of God to ensure you have a hereafter. Our veterans, they can lay down their life so you ensure you have a great life here until you're gone. I mentioned taking great risks with one's own life and well-being. And some of you, I know some, have served in Vietnam, and the infantryman's burden was great there. Author Tim O'Brien wrote a book. He was a journalist, and he went to Vietnam, and this is a Pulitzer Prize-winning book. And the title of it's called "The Things They Carried." And he talked about the physical things they carried. And he said he wrote they carried pictures of girlfriends and moms and love letters and radios and M79 grenade launchers and M60 machine guns, but they carried a lot of psychological things. They carried all the emotional baggage of men that might die, and they saw men dying next to them. A friend of mine's here today, Sergeant Robert McCarty. lives on Antioch Road. He's on page 188 in this book I wrote. I interviewed Robert for the book. And he was an Army flamethrower operator in the Vietnam, and he has described some of those emotional baggage and burdens that he still carries. He lost his best friend that stepped off the vehicle, was blown to smithereens. He was a flamethrower operator, and he was third in line to protect his captain who was in the convoy. And the Viet Cong would have these young men run out, these young boys run out with hand grenades, and they'd try to drop them on the captain. And Robert's job was to turn that flamethrower and burn those kids up. Now, let me tell you something, folks. That's an emotional baggage you'll carry the rest of your life. And Robert's told me he's had nightmares about that, and that's understandable. If you don't, then you're not a human being. Veterans come from all walks of life. Some of them were farm boys like me. Some came off of sawmills, some were store clerks, some sold furniture, some were repo men. Some were actors like Clark Gable or Jimmy Stewart, and you folks are so young you probably don't know who they are. The heartthrob actor Paul Newman, he was a rear gunner on a Navy torpedo plane that was supposed to operate off the USS Bunker Hill in the Pacific in World War II. His pilot came down with an ear infection, so Newman never landed on that USS Bunker Hill, and it's a good thing because it was attacked by Japanese kamikazes in May of 1945, killing 352 United States sailors. And one of those sailors that died was Seaman James O'Rell Schofield of Opp, my home, and he was buried at sea the next day. They wrapped him in a flag and they slipped him into the water. Some veterans were sports figures. Ted Williams, the great baseball slugger for the Boston Red Sox, my favorite team, he was a fighter pilot in World War II and the Korean War. Williams, in his career, hit 521 home runs. He's in the Hall of Fame. Can you imagine had he had those other 5 years to play baseball? He might have surpassed Babe Ruth, but he served his country as a fighter pilot. Another fellow named Ralph Shug Jordan. He was a basketball coach in Georgia, and then he became head football coach at Auburn University. But he was a combat engineer during the D-Day invasion of France in June of 1944, where he was wounded but survived. Shug Jordan went on to lead Auburn to its first national championship in 1957 in football. And if you go to a football game today, you'll see Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's named for Shug Jordan, combat engineer. A lot of veterans from this area had unique experiences. One that I had the opportunity to interview and write about, and he's in the book, this American Veterans book is one of them. But he served in both Korea and in Vietnam, and he had experiences very similar to what Robert did. One of the families from Brantley, it was unbelievable what happened to this family. It was Mr. and Mrs. A.J. Catrick. They carried tremendous burdens for their family in World War II. They had a son, Tech Sergeant James Catrick. He died in the Battle of Peleliu Island in the Pacific, 1944. They had another son, Corporal John Catrick of Seawright, right out here. He died in Tunisia in North Africa in 1943. They had another son, Private William Catrick. He was wounded in the invasion of France in June of 44, but he did live. And then they had a fourth son, Sergeant Roy Catrick, and he was killed in the crash of a B-36 bomber in August of 1953. 3 of those 4 sons gave their life for this country, and the other one was wounded. Can you imagine the tears and the heartache and the stress that the Catrick family from Brantley, Alabama went through? You mentioned Roy Evers. He ran a used furniture store in Rose Hill and Dozier in the 1970s. He was an Army Air Force veteran. World War II, he served in the North Africa campaign in Italy. He has a son, Robert Evers, sitting here with a blue shirt on. Wave your hand, Robert. Robert served in the Marine Corps from 87 to 92. He deployed 3 times to the Mediterranean with the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. He also participated in Operation Sharp Edge. That was an evacuation of combatants in Liberia. Roy's other son, John Evers, was once principal of Strawn, and I understand he's a coach here now. We owe the family a debt of gratitude, the Evers family. Another family, Miss Maddie Lucy Jones from Rose Hill. She bore great burdens in World War II. She had one son, Wyman Jones, that enlisted in the Navy in 1942 and spent much of his time at sea. He contracted pneumonia and ended up in New York City, where he passed away in 1944. One of his pallbearers, when they buried him at Rose Hill Cemetery, was a fellow named Jim Goolsby from this area. I'm sure some of you know the Goolsby family name. Another of Maddie Jones' sons, Chief Warrant Officer John Frank Jones, who graduated Strawn School, by the way, he became a prisoner of war. He enlisted in 1942. He served in the 101st Airborne Division Screaming Eagles. He was part of D-Day on June 6, 1944. But he was captured in France, and he was held prisoner of war in some of the most deplorable conditions until he was rescued by the Russians. After war's end, he established Rose Hill Tractor Company, and I'm sure that some of you probably did business with Chief Warrant Officer Jones, and that was for decades. Many other veterans from our own area had unique experiences in wartime. A fellow named Thomas Dwight Teal, his picture's on the back of this book because I wanted to honor him. He was a quarterback on the Opp High School 1942 football team. He went to API, that's what Auburn was called before it was called Auburn University, and he went for a short period of time, and then he enlisted in the Army Air Corps. He became a fighter pilot. He was trained in the P-47 Thunderbolt. He flew an amazing 6 missions crossing the English Channel on D-Day. 6 missions back and forth. The most amazing thing is that Thomas Dwight Teal was 19 years old. A lot of you kids out here are probably 18. He was only a year older than you, and he's a fighter pilot flying 6 combat sorties on D-Day. Well, he was shot down near Lille, France. He never came home. They buried him overlooking Normandy Beach. His family said just leave him there with his compatriots. Korea was called the Forgotten War because I guess a lot of people forgot about it, but Brantley had a 19-year-old private named Baskell Jones. He was in the artillery battalion, and he was wounded in North Korea in '51, and he later died from those wounds. They had Private Johnny Jenkins from Brantley. He was in a signal battalion, and he drowned in a reservoir in North Korea when his cargo carrier sank in 1953. I think a lot of people probably know where Kinston, Alabama is, just on the other side of Opp. There was a Sergeant Rudolph Buddy Farmer. He was Army infantry from there. And during the Korean War, he was in a foxhole with 5 other American infantry. And in the wee hours of the morning, a Chinese came in, dropped a hand grenade into that foxhole with him and his others. Buddy Farmer jumped on that hand grenade, and he blew himself to smithereens, but it saved those other 5. That's what veterans do. He had signed that blank check that he could give his life, and he did. He should have been the Medal of Honor, but they never gave it to him, which was a disgrace. The Vietnam War claimed over 52,000 deaths, including Marine Lance Corporal Jimmy Norsworthy of Brantley, Staff Sergeant Aubrey Cawley of River Falls, and Army Private First Class Albert Powell from Brantley. A specialist 4th class named Ronald Gilmore, a graduate of Strawn School, was and he's from Seawright out here. He was in the U.S. Army. He died in November of 1967 in South Vietnam. He re-entered a collapsed bunker to try to save his fellow soldiers, and it collapsed on him. Ronald Gilmore was only 19 years old, like Dwight Teal. He was the 2nd youngest to die in Vietnam in Covington County. They had all signed that blank check. They knew the danger. A Vietnam veteran born on the Tisdall farm down in Babby. Anybody know where Babby is? His dad was a sharecropper, and he's in this book too. My wife says it's the most amazing story of all 62, if you figure where he started and where he ended up. But he picked cotton, stacked peanuts, hauled hay, just like I did. He sold furniture. He was a repo man. He was a great football player, the center. He was a shot put champion in the conference, 1958 at Up. He married the homecoming queen, beautiful gal named Ann Crosby. She went to Blue Springs School, Robert. But anyway, Major Donald Jack Neese, ultimately a major, that sharecropper's son needed a job. He was living in Yawkey Apartments, about to starve in Ops. So he, on a lark, he joined the Air Force, went to Montgomery, joined the Air Force. He went in as enlisted, and they tested him. He tested so well, they said, we're sending you to Yale University to learn Mandarin Chinese. So he mastered Mandarin Chinese language. They put him in the back of a C-130, and he flew up and down along the coastline of communist China. Headphones on, pen, notepad. He copied their communications. He was a spy against communist China. This is the guy grew up in Babby. His daddy was a sharecropper. But that wasn't the end of it. He later became an Air Force pilot, flew C-141, C-130s. He was highly decorated. He was wounded. He was shot on one mission. He was hit in the ankle. They shot out his left engine. He was trying to make an airdrop in Cambodia. The plane caught on fire. He did a circle, came back around, made a perfect airdrop. He was awarded the Silver Star, third highest. You got the Medal of Honor and the Air Force Cross and Silver Star. Distinguished Flying Cross, Purple Heart. He made 186 landings at a Marine outpost called Khe Sanh in Vietnam. That was a place where they dropped mortars in every day. Donald Neese went in and out 186 times with his crew. Smart man. He was later assigned to the Air Staff. And they said, well, we're going to send you over to Langley. You're going to work with the CIA. So he went over there and he debriefed our prisoners of war that were coming home. We had some Russian defectors. He debriefed them because he's a smart guy. He had these language skills. When President Richard Nixon had ping-pong diplomacy and opened up diplomatic relations with Communist China, who do you think he took with him? Donald Neese from Babby was on Richard Nixon's Air Force One, going to, it was called Peking, China then, it's Beijing. That wasn't the end of it. They tried to promote him. He was a major, and he said, I had enough. He got his career. He retired. He went to work for Lockheed Aircraft Company. It makes C-130s, C-141s. They sent him to Europe. He became head of European sales. He became acquainted with Queen Elizabeth and the royal family. He knew it was then Prince Charles. He's now King of England, Charles. He became acquainted with Princess Di. Personally, I told my wife I think she had a little thing for him, but never know. But anyway, Princess Di and Charles, they had all these problems, and they split up, and of course they had two sons, and one of them's the next in line, William, to be the king. But anyway, Princess Di decided she was going to get out of public appearances, so she asked Donald Neese to be her master of ceremonies. So when she went to the London Hilton and made her last public appearance, Donald Neese stood like I did, and he introduced her. Donald Neese from Babby, Alabama. His daddy had no education. He was a sharecropper. Listen, folks, some of you kids out there are probably growing up on farms. You can do anything you want to do, but you got to have a drive and a determination and the smarts to be like Donald Jack Neese. Just because you're born in Babby, Alabama, or Horn Hill, Alabama, it doesn't mean anything. It's not where you start out, it's where you end up. So please take that as a lesson when you leave here. In Iraq, our soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq served in extreme heat indexes of over 130 degrees or more. We heard about pro football player Pat Tillman, who after the 9/11 attacks, he turned down a $3.6 million contract to go into the Army Rangers and serve this country. Unfortunately, he was killed in a friendly fire accident. They misidentified, and we killed him. Our soldiers accidentally killed him. But he was quoted after 9/11 when they asked him, why'd you leave pro football, all that money, and go in the Army? He said, after the recent events of the horrible 9/11 attacks, I've come to appreciate just how shallow and insignificant my role in sports is. He saw how valuable and how important it is to serve one's country. Well, sadly, after 20 years and hundreds of billions of dollars and great sacrifice by so many thousands, we have withdrawn from Afghanistan. We've left Iraq divided. We've got the terrorist Taliban in control. The Chinese are only a short distance away from Bagram Airfield because we blew it. But in every case, a lot of heroes from here in this area, it's amazing. I sat and watched this list here, and they signed that contract, my life, and a lot of them gave it. They did amazing things. They received Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, Silver Stars. Some of them lost their limbs. They sacrificed their lives. Some of them came back and started businesses like John Frank Jones with the Rose Hill Tractor Company. Many of them volunteered in civic organizations. A guy named Jason McCormick, I was just reading about him in a magazine. His mom told him when he turned 18, says, son, you need to go get a job. So he went up to Montgomery and volunteered for the Army. Next thing he knows, he's over in Afghanistan and Iraq. Well, he comes back. He goes to Greenville, gets a job with the Pioneer Electric Company. He's now a lineman. But that's in this area. People serve. They do great things for the country. And they come back and they have productive and useful lives. This area here has so much of which to be proud. And I had no idea we had all these people, but it's impossible to cover them all, and I'm sure there's some that were missed, but be assured we can strut with pride around this area about what our veterans have done and what they're still doing. Some of you here may decide to serve, and if you do, I wish you all the very best of luck. It's not easy, because I've been there, and Robert's been there, and the other Robert, all of them. In fact, it's very demanding. If you join the Navy SEALs, the Army Rangers, or Delta Force, or Air Force Special Operations, you're entering an elite, oftentimes secret world where only the very best are able to make the grade and qualify. But it's nice to know that you served with the very best. So if you choose that route, my advice to you is simple. The very first thing is to disregard limits. Limits. It's a 6-letter word, L-I-M-I-T-S, short word. But that can often determine whether you succeed or fail in life. Psychologists will tell you that limits are mostly self-imposed. By that, they mean that many young people often don't try something because they believe they can't do it. Or some don't do things because their friend says, you're crazy, you can't do that. Ignore those limits and ignore those friends if they tell you you can't. Donald Jack Neese is the example, others. If you want to succeed, then you must do well in school. So let me say what you're doing now is the single most important task that you have at this moment. It's right in front of you. So concentrate and work hard, and opportunity will come. The military requires great discipline. If you aspire to become a pilot, and I didn't, I would encourage you to participate in sports, whatever sport. But it will allow you to develop hand and eye coordination. And that's one of the most important things in being a pilot is hand and eye coordination. Sports will also teach you discipline and teamwork, and that's really important in the military. Listen to your teachers. Listen to your coaches. They've been there. They've experienced life. You're just now experiencing it. But they will teach you something about character. They will teach you something about not giving up. Have a goal and pursue it. It's been said that no man is an island, and by that is meant that everyone is part of a team, whether you're in the military, in your family, or in life in general. So make the most of it. Always think of the possible and never focus on what is impossible. Push that aside. Don't think about what you can't do. Remember that anything worth achieving will take hard work, long hours, and dedication to tasks, but you can get there. There's something else I want you to remember in closing here. If you love your freedom, think of veteran. It's the veteran, not a preacher, that has given you freedom of religion. It's the veteran, not some reporter, that has assured us the freedom of the press. It's the veteran, not some poet, who assured us freedom of speech. It's the veteran, not some wild-eyed campus organizer that ensures your freedom to assemble. It's the veteran, not some lawyer, that assures you the right to a fair trial. So before you leave here today, do me one favor. Hug a veteran. Say thank you for their service and sacrifice. It doesn't take a whole lot to make a veteran smile, and a simple thank you will go a long way. So thank you again for inviting me here to speak. I love doing this stuff, and I wish all of you the very best. Just remember, ignore those limits. God bless you all, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Colonel Lawrence. Each branch of the United States Armed Forces has a rich musical history, and some of the most recognizable melodies in American music are the songs that represent each branch of the Armed Forces. As the Sound of Gold concert band performs Armed Forces, the Pride of America, we ask that all current and former military members, as well as family members of current and former military members, stand when your service song is performed. The United States Army and Army National Guard. The United States Marine Corps. The United States Navy. The United States Coast Guard. The United States Air Force. Thank you, Sound of Gold. Now for a word with Laurie Glisson and Christian Pate.
When Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner almost 200 years ago, he called America the land of the free and the home of the brave. As we listen to the national anthem today, I was reminded to be thankful that those words are as true today as they were then. Throughout the nation's history, America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have bravely answered the call to defend our freedom, to aid our friends and allies, and to turn back aggressors.
Today we have the profound honor of expressing our gratitude to all of America's veterans. We acknowledge their unwavering commitment and the sacrifices that they have made for our country. The cost of freedom is steep, and we must never forget those who have bravely shouldered that burden. Today we celebrate our veterans for safeguarding the ideals that make this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you once again for your service. As we pay tribute to our veterans and reflect on their extraordinary contributions, let us also extend our respect to those who are currently defending our freedoms.
We will now conclude our program with a playing of taps to honor those who have paid for our freedoms. Taps is played by the military at burial and memorial services to accompany the lowering of the flag or to signal the lights out command at day's end. Please respectfully stand and remain silent.
Thank you. You may be seated. As we conclude our program today, let us take a moment to reflect on the profound sacrifices made by our veterans. Each one of them has answered the call to serve, embodying courage and dedication in the face of adversity. President Ronald Reagan once said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." This reminds us that the freedoms we enjoy today were secured through the unwavering commitment of those who served. It is our responsibility to honor their sacrifices, not just on Veterans Day, but every day, ensuring that their bravery is never forgotten. In the spirit of gratitude, we must also remember the words of President Harry S. Truman, who stated, "Our debt to the heroic men and valiant women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our undying gratitude." Let us carry this sentiment in our hearts as we move forward, finding ways to support our veterans in our community. Whether through advocacy, service, or simple acts of kindness, we can all play a part in showing appreciation for their sacrifices. Thank you, veterans and families, for attending. We hope we have expressed our gratitude and appreciation for you all today.
I just want to say a quick thank you also to Colonel Lawrence for doing such a good job coming to speak to us today. I want to also say my thank you to our veterans that are here with us. Thank y'all for being here. First of all, thank you for serving and all that you did. There's no way we could say thank you enough for what you did to ensure our freedoms that we enjoy. Also, I want to say thank you to our SGA students, Miss Wood, who's, bless her heart, she's sick. They did a really good job, I thought. Worked really hard on this, and I want to thank them. Thank you, Mr. Walden and the band, for y'all doing such a great job as always. Appreciate all of you for what you did, okay? Veterans and their families possibly, they would like to have a picture once we're dismissed down here in the front, just like right in front of the stage. Am I right about that? So if y'all just kind of make your way to right there after we dismiss, they want to get a picture. And let's see. Well, I tell you what, let's just do this. Let's just give our veterans one more round of applause. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. Okay, at this time, students, we're going to dismiss, and we will be reporting to third period class. Third period class. Thank you. Oh, no, you did great.
Okay, I was trying to keep it.
That was good.
I hope that they understand